Good morning. Welcome to Northwest Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Vanessa Washington, and I will be your worship associate this morning. Today's service is brought to you by the 8th Principle Implementation Team. Today we welcome Ebony Peace to Northwest, who's joining us virtually from the DC area in Maryland. Ebony is a lay community minister whose ministries focus on workplace justice, liberal sexual education, and leadership development. She is an adult, our whole lives sexuality education facilitator. As a part of her ministry, she serves as a co-facilitator for the District of Columbia Center for the LGBT Communities Job Club and facilitates monthly adult spiritual enrichment classes in sexuality and leadership development through Sunstone Chapel. She is also a member of the Unitarian Universalist Society for Community Ministries and the 2022 winner of the Charles Billings Prize for Excellence in Preaching, awarded by Meadville Lombard Theological School. She's a lifelong Unitarian Universalist from Maryland. She holds a BA in Sociology from Sweetbriar College, an MS in Strategic Human Resources and Organization Development from Johns Hopkins University, and a Master's of Arts in Leadership Studies from Meadville Lombard Theological School. She completed her seminary internship at All Souls Church Unitarian in Washington, D.C., where she focused on adult spiritual development, social justice, and worship arts. She has a professional background as a clinical sociologist, practicing in human resources, training, facilitation, and career consulting. Ebony is a college instructor, having taught courses in business, general education, and sociology at 3 schools. And in her spare time, she enjoys writing poetry and stories. Her poems have been published in the 2021 In Spirit Anthology and in Blue Notes, an anthology of love, justice, and liberation by Skinner House Books. And she just has awesome personality, so you will enjoy hearing from her today. If you are a visitor online and would like Northwest to stay in touch with you, please fill out the visitor form in the chat box. And if you're with us in person, you can fill out the visitor sign-in form in the atrium. Please greet your neighbors with a wave from wherever you are. I want to make some of you move over here so it'll be balanced. So before before the prelude starts, let's all take a deep breath and settle into a time of worship.
It's the day-to-day. Day where things change, or is it just more of the same? They say the good things come to those who wait, but the good things never seem to come my way. Nah, how much longer can I wait? I'm not having much luck with having luck come my way. I can't let my whole life roll away. I've got decisions to make, is there another way? When I look in the mirror, I see something different. I see a warrior, I feel something different. The heart of a lion, I feel it in my spirit. It said no more waiting, it's time to go and get it. If I keep waiting for change, I'll be waiting forever. Get going, set sail and adjust to the weather. I've got to step it up and be a go-getter. If I want better, I've got to be better.
I really want things to change, but they just stay the same. It's still not the way. Instead of sitting and waiting, I will step up to the plate. I know I will be great. There's no one else to blame. Nothing will change unless I take.
Yeah, it's the day-to-day, the day where things change. I think it's time time to make a change. I'm moving forward, I ain't waiting for change. I can't stay the same. I played way too much of the waiting game. Today I'm stepping up. I'm going after my dreams, going after the best version of me. I'll be honest, I procrastinated and held back for so long. So it's only right to go for what I want. I commit to achieving all my dreams. I choose to be the very best version of me. No more excuses, it's all on me. I'm not useless, I just didn't think that I could do it. But I'm working on myself daily until I make it. Negativity eliminated. I can win, I will step up and make it. I'm not taking no breaks unless I'm record breaking.
I really want things to change, but they just stay the same. Is there another way? Instead of sitting and waiting, I will step up to the plate. I know I will be great. There's no one else to blame. Nothing will change unless I take.
Today's the day where things change, and things will only change when I change. I'm doing daily, I'm reading more, I'm working harder than ever before. I'm the last to lead, I'm the first to rise, breaking through the ceilings, I'm making strides. Discipline, more positive habits, I see the brass ring, and now I'm going to grab it, let's go.
I really want things to change, but they just stay the same. Is there another way? Instead of sitting and waiting, I will step up to the plate. I know I will be great. There's no one else to blame. Nothing will change unless I take.
Like change. When I look in the mirror, I see something different. I see a warrior, I feel something different. The heart of a lion, I feel it in my spirit. It said no more waiting, it's time to go and get it. If I keep waiting for change, I'll be waiting forever. Get going, set sail and adjust to the weather. I've got to step it up and be a go-getter. If I want better, I've got to be better.
I'm looking for things to change, but things that stay the same. There's gotta be a better way. Instead of sitting and waiting, I will step up to the plate and turn the ways of chasing greatness. It's on me, no one to blame. Nothing will change unless I take.
We begin our service today with a land acknowledgement. We collectively acknowledge that Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples. In particular, the congregation resides on land ceded in the 1807 Treaty of Detroit. We recognize, support, and advocate for the sovereignty of Michigan's 12 federally recognized Indian nations, for historic indigenous communities in Michigan, for indigenous individuals and communities who live here now, and for those who were forcibly removed from their homelands. By offering this land acknowledgement, we pledge ourselves to justice and repair, both with the land and its people. We light our chalice, the symbol of our faith, knowing that this morning many other Unitarian Universalist congregations across this land and across the world are doing the same. We light our chalice with words from Adrian L.H. Graham. We kindle a flame of power, illuminating the holy in each of our faces. We recognize in the flame a passionate commitment to our shared faith. We are held and carried from day to day, week to week, in the shining of the light. The flame is mine as well as yours. We are brought together on this day called to growth, to expansion within its glow. What does your heart know while beholding this holy fire?
On video.
Chocolate cinnamon read aloud.
Hello, chocolate cinnamon readers. It's Miss Sasha, and today's story is Evelyn Del Rey is Moving Away by Meg Medina, illustrated by Sonia Sanchez. Evelyn Del Rey is my mejor amiga, my numero uno best friend. Come play, Daniela, she says, just like she always does, just like today is any other day. So I bundle up and cross the street. A big truck with its mouth wide open is parked at the curb, ready to gobble up Evelyn's mirror with the stickers around the edge, her easel for painting on rainy days, and the sofa that we bounce on to get to the moon. She is waiting for me inside the iron doors. Then we climb the steps, 2 at a time, just like we always do. We sneak past grouchy Mr. Miller's door and wave to Mr. Sue, who's feeding pigeons from the hall window. Senora Flores gives us each a cookie and says, "It's the big day," when we walk by. Our apartments are almost twins, just like us. That's why I already knew all the good places for hide and seek, and the spot behind the heater where we keep our special finds. But the walls in Evelyn's room are sunny yellow, while mine are pink like cotton candy. And I live with my mommy and a hamster, and she has a mommy, a puppy, and a cat. We are mostly the same, just like our apartments, but not after today. We find a still empty box near the door. In no time, I am a bus driver staring us all over the city. We play until the tables that were bus stops are gone, and the beds that were skyscrapers have vanished too. When we look around, everything has disappeared. except us. Soon the truck outside rumbles off and there is a knock on the door. "Hide," we say, giggling, just like we always do. But our mothers see us before we can slip away. "Time to go," Mommy says. Evelyn and I hold hands in the wide, empty space. We lean back and start to spin in circles, faster and faster, until everything is a blur around us. Our fingers slip, but we don't let go until we wobble to the floor. "We can talk every day after school," I tell her, though the world is still whirling. "And you can visit me this summer," she says, "and spend the night." But I know that tomorrow everything will be different. Evelyn will be in a new home that doesn't match mine. Before we leave, I spot something in the corner, left behind in the dust. It's the last of Evelyn's sparkly stickers. We go downstairs and I press a heart on her cheek to seal our promise. Then she does mine, just the same. We say, "Patata," while Mommy takes a photo. We do our secret handshake one more time, and then Evelyn hugs me hard. Evelyn Del Rey is moving away, so she won't be right here anymore. Mommy says not to be sad, that we will both make new friends. But when Evelyn waves one last time, the stickers still on her cheeks, I know she will always be my first mejor amiga, my numero uno best friend. The one I will always know by heart. The end. I hope you liked that story as much as I did, Chocolate Cinnamon Raiders. See you next time.
Now our children, youth, and their teachers will leave the service. They'll join affinity groups in room A and in the nursery. And so we'll just sing them out. All, both of us.
Thanks. One purpose of a religious community is to encourage all who gather together to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring human beings closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will mutually support this self-supporting congregation and the shared plate recipient. The Social Justice Committee has selected the Native Justice Coalition as the April shared plate recipient. If you would like to donate, you can do so in a variety of ways that are now visible on your screen. And for those here in person, Cheryl is passing a collection basket. We will play a short video to learn more about the work of the Native Justice Coalition.
Bonjour, good morning. My name is Bronson Herman. I'm the Great Lakes organizer at the Native Justice Coalition. Great to be here. Again, our work is for the Native communities here in the state of Michigan, throughout the Great Lakes as well. However, with our community partners, we work with non-native organizations, interfaith programs as well. And with our programming, we work a lot on healing stories. So that's the Truth and Reconciliation Commission regarding boarding school survivors. We offer talking, healing circles. Additionally, we have a Anishinaabe Racial Justice Conference. We'll be doing our 4th annual one. Really, our work is focused in our culture and our traditions. We are a 6-year-old coalition based out of Manistee, Michigan. Our executive director and founder is out of Manistee. Started out of their home, and I live here in Southeast Michigan, but really we go where we're needed. Depending on the community, we have a diverse community, different cultural elements, and each community has their own need, different issues going on. Some of the most prevalent ones right now are the missing, murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. In the state of Michigan, human trafficking is one of the states with, basically it is a hot spot with all the ports and different areas and being close to Canada as well. So our work is really focused on community, having different perspectives, backgrounds, and these issues are impacting our communities here in the state of Michigan, but these are issues that are necessary for everyone to take on and create exposure. And again, I'm thankful for being here.
And you are invited to rise in body or spirit as you are willing and able for hymn number 1029, Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear.
And now we'll hear a reading from the latest Article 2 Study Commission draft section on inspirations and inclusion. As Unitarian Universalists, we draw upon and are inspired by the full depth and breadth of sacred understandings as experienced by humanity. Grateful for the religious lineages we inherit and the pluralism which enriches our faith, we're called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom. Systems of power, privilege, and oppression have traditionally created barriers for persons and groups with particular identities, ages, abilities, and histories. We pledge to replace such barriers with ever-widening circles of solidarity and mutual respect. We strive to be an association of congregations that truly welcome all persons who share our values. We commit to structuring congregational and associational life in ways that empower and enhance everyone's participation. Now we'll
Good morning. We have a long living tradition of expanding and opening our hearts. It's of no surprise that we, as Unitarian Universalists, are predisposed to change. Change is literally baked into the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Did you know our principles and sources were not meant to be static? And I knew we called ourselves the living tradition because we consider ourselves flexible, reasonable, open-minded, but I did not know, and excuse me while I get a little technical here, that Article 15, Section C-15.1 requires a periodic review of Article 2. Article 2 is a section of our UUA bylaws that contain our principles, sources, and purposes. This periodic review is mandated to take place not less than every 15 years. Our principles were first created in 1960. A review happened back in the mid-'80s, which added our 7 principle and 5 sources. This mid-'80s review was led mostly by women who advocated to replace sexist language with gender-neutral language. In 1995, Earth-centered traditions were added as a source. We haven't had any major changes since then, even though the study and review of our Article 2 continue to take place. This is important. Just because a review and proposed changes occur does not mean the proposal will pass. Case in point, in 2006, a review began, and 2 years later, in 2008, draft revisions to our principles, sources, and purposes were proposed. A year later, at the 2009 General Assembly in Salt Lake, Utah, delegates voted down the proposed changes. The vote was very close, with a 13-vote difference, 573 to 586. To be clear, right now, in 2023, we are in the midst of such a review. Our forebears who crafted this rule of periodic review wanted to ensure our faith deliberately adapted to the future and that we remained without a permanent dogma. When these 15-year reviews start, it moves along in a 2-year process of deep discernment that includes input from individuals and eventual voting by delegates. These delegates vote twice, once for preliminary approval with a simple majority, and then a second vote that requires 2/3 vote over 2 consecutive General Assemblies. Our cosmic reality is that the universe is in motion, the stars, the planets, the galaxies, our Earth is in motion. For our faith to be in motion, for Unitarian Universalism to embrace the natural rhythm of the cosmos in which we are a part, is a beautiful truth. Continuous change and reevaluation are a part of our theology. We are not called the living tradition for nothing. We are open to new information. We have a culture of learning, a theology of applying what we've learned into our shared values. This matters because in our case, change is good. Some of us have been talking about voting on and doing our best to live into the spirit of the 8th principle. This is about stretching ourselves to not just do justice work outside of our faith communities, but within them. I'm passionate about this because the current proposed changes include the heart of the 8th principle language. This is the inclusion many of us have been working hard towards. The proposed changes include a pledge to be inclusive, welcoming, and accountable for creating a beloved community. I invite those of you who may be uncomfortable with the proposed changes to consider not the technical reason for why these changes are being proposed, but what these changes in this sacred process can teach us. Every 15 years or so, this ritual of change reminds us, teaches us about the spiritual practice of change, of transformation. Let's use this opportunity to remind ourselves of our UU theology of change. Remind us that we are meaning makers and meaning seekers, that this is not just in our congregations, but within our denomination as a whole. We practice what we preach. This is where we practice right relations, when we listen to each other. This is also where we hold space for grief. And yes, I say grief. Our principles, sources are emotionally charged because they are sacred. They give us direction and a shared understanding of what matters most. When something critical to the core of our faith changes, it inevitably changes us as well. So let's give ourselves grace. And I hope that when the changes are said and done, we celebrate the faithful process we engaged in. Not necessarily celebrating the changes per se, but celebrating our process. The right answer is not in the results of this review, whatever they may be. The right answer is in our process in which we covenant for our shared truth. So let's get started with a deep dive into what this 3-page draft proposal even says. A few moments ago, we heard the readings from this latest Article 2 draft. The first reading sought to clarify and reframe our shared understanding of what inspires our UU faith. And I quote, "Grateful for the religious ancestries we inherit and the diversity which enriches our faith. We are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom. As our understanding expands, we speak our truth, and we can't reach our goals without transformation." And within the Article 2 draft, there lifts up our commitment to inclusion. In that draft, it acknowledges the harm caused by unchecked systems of power, privilege, and oppression. It pledges to replace these barriers with solidarity and mutual respect. And this language makes clear our goal of empowering each other to participate without undue oppressive obstacles. And so this proposal expresses that we are inspired by multiple sources of wisdom and experience, that we covenant and agree to replace systems that create barriers with solidarity that creates belonging. Our multifaceted inspirations and pledge of inclusion seem to set the groundwork for the next section of this draft proposal, which continues with values and covenant. So it's clear that the spirit of our principles is here, yet they're now called values and they're reframed to center love. And this section includes 7 values: love, justice, generosity, transformation, pluralism, equity, and interdependence. They read as follows. Love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. We covenant to cherish Earth and all beings by creating a nurturing relationship of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships. Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. Justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism in all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive, democratic processes to make decisions. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Now, openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. We generously connect to generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. And in equity, we declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. These are our shared values. These are what our shared values may look like in the future. These are the drafts. Now, there are 3 changes that I believe are important to acknowledge, and I'll share these. The first is that in this proposal, there are no numbered 7 principles. This can feel like a big change, and for some of us, it is. So can we just hold space for those who are experiencing grief? Can we remember that someone can grieve for what was lost while still being supportive of what we gain with this draft proposal? May we remember that this space is a relational process, a ritual of many feelings, many conversations, and reflection. The second is that in this proposal, the 8th principle is alive and well. Did you hear it? Do you feel it? It's weaved into the proposed value of justice. And I quote, "We covenant to dismantle racism in all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions," end quote. The third change that I want to lift is the inclusion of the word love. This proposal finally lifts up love. The fact that we're just now including love is an example of where this proposal catches up to our lived experience as UUs. Despite us holding up love in such high regard, it was never mentioned in any of our principles. It's time love gets its proper recognition in place as the, and I quote, "enduring force that holds us together." All of this is to say that this mandated, spirit-led transformation is one of the most sacred, meaningful rituals our denomination engages in, and it has not been acknowledged with the deep reverence it deserves. So let's change that, starting today. This is where our next steps come in. So what do we do now as a congregation? What do we do now as an individual person of liberal, rational belief? So let's explore that. Let's explore what our next steps could look like from the lens of spiritual practice, democracy, and rationality. Change. Change is how we have chosen theologically to define our future. This is in deep contrast to some faith traditions which are deliberately static. It's not so much that we hold change as sacred, it's that practicing change as a spiritual practice helps us live into applying our theological understanding of the interdependent web in which we exist. Our next steps might look like this. We listen. We listen to the joys and sorrows of our community. We repair bonds broken, covenants undone. This interdependent web is about many things, including relationships. As we become aware of our relational concerns, we take action to make things right. We change for the better. We consider compassionate processes that support not repeating mistakes. We revise all those things that contributed to failures. We remove what causes pain. We clarify our shared meanings and reassess our priorities in today's context with an eye toward growing together in a meaningful way. We embrace change to increase our resilience and upholding covenants in which our relationships can thrive. So yes, we may fall short, and yes, we must keep trying. The relational interdependent web is our reason. Embracing change as a spiritual practice is the how. The where is within the UUA. It's within our congregations and within ourselves. The Reverend Kathleen Rowlands, author, UU minister for over 29 years, and accredited interim minister, who I have had the honor of being mentored by during my seminary internship. She says this about our living tradition. Throughout history, we have moved to the rhythms of mystery and wonder, prophecy, wisdom, teachings from ancient and modern sources, and nature herself. We move. Not only do we move, but we move to many wisdoms, to our many experiences. We move to the ethical rationality in our hearts in which we trust. We move to the scientific inquiry that says, the outcome of our study will be better when we work together, take in various inputs and discern in good faith with good data. Yes, good data. When we call on the spirit of John Lewis's guiding principle, good trouble, this means necessary trouble to enact and inspire meaningful change. And so I like to add that let's get into good trouble with good data. Good data, in our sense, is data that is democratically gathered, the facts and lived experience of truth tellers, where we name our grief while holding space for grace, holding space for the imperfections of our humanity. Change is often an uncomfortable, time-consuming process. We know this, in part because no transcendent power will save us from ourselves. We must step up, make it our business to understand the changes that may come to pass. We must step up and make it our spiritual practice to participate. Without our active participation in this process, this Article 2 study, there can be no good data gathered. This is not a time to sit back and watch. This is a time to dialogue with each other. Reach out to the denominational affairs representative in your congregation if they haven't reached out to you yet. Ensure that you're updated on when and how to participate in this process. This is a time to engage with the Article 2 study resources available on the UUA website. Use them as a source for small group ministries. This is a time to add this topic to your schedule. It's also a time to think about how you might encourage your delegates to vote. For the past few months, UUs all over have offered their voices so that the Article 2 Commission has good data to work in an inclusive way that captures many voices. There's a survey up right now where you can contribute your voice to these proposed changes. Will your delegates vote for these changes? Changes which include love and a pledge toward anti-oppression and justice. For the outcome to have the best result, all need to be a part of the process that gets us there. Let me illustrate this by saying that it's impossible to deepen without change. This is why we regularly reevaluate our principles, purposes, and sources. Are they doing the job we need them to do? Do they reflect who we wish to be? Even if these proposed changes are adopted, It does not mean that the eighth principle task forces out there that they won't have any more work to do anymore. It does not mean that congregations who've adopted the eighth principle can say the work is done. We know that to agree on something does not mean we automatically start living into it. This living into our values takes work. It takes our committees. It takes love. Jewish writer Arvam Davis observed, and I quote, "We are what we practice." So let's practice change. Let's practice acknowledging this every 15-year ritual with reverence and honor. Let's practice, as my favorite philosopher, Bruce Lee, says, being like water. Unitarian Universalism is a fluid faith. Bruce Lee reminds us, and I quote, "Be like water, making its way through cracks. If nothing within you stays rigid, outward things will disclose themselves. Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless like water. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend," end quote. Some religions perceive being fluid and open to change as an invitation to crash, to lose power. We are so beautifully different. We choose our way forward. We create our future. We choose to flow and be fluid. We choose to perceive open-mindedness as a virtue. It is unethical to remain unchanged when good data comes, when our circumstances change. When a family grows and a baby needs a seat at the table, we use our resources to get a seat that's comfortable and safe. If an adult now uses a wheelchair, in order to include them at the table, we must first remove the old chair to make space for them. When someone in our beloved community says our current principles don't do enough to keep them from harm, we must not only listen, but change. Change is a critical part of our spiritual growth and evolution as a faith community. We know not changing is easier. There is safety for some in the status quo. For others, the status quo is not so safe. It's harmful, oppressive. However, we are a people that journey together, not on the easiest path, but on the path that calls to the best of ourselves. Jesus could have taken the easy path, but he resisted. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. could have taken the easy path, but he had a dream. 6-year-old Ruby Bridges could have stayed at a school for Black children, but she integrated. Sophia Lyons-Foss, Unitarian, theologian, educator, and author, broke norms with her innovative contributions to our faith because she knew what worked in the past would not serve us into the future. This is the path of love. When our principles transform, so do we. May we be true to who we say we are. When the status quo no longer serves us, may we choose to evolve, to lean into change as a spiritual practice, a fluid faith like water. We choose change. We choose love. You are invited to rise in body or spirit as you're willing and able to sing hymn 168, One More Step. May we bless the work inherent in the review of our values. May we hold sacred this aspect of our theology, which calls us to reconsider our past, listen to those in which we covenant with, and find shared meaning to serve as a beacon for our future. For the servant leaders overseeing this review and our transformation process, for the listeners who discern with love. We engage together in good faith. We collectively transform with love. May we embody change as a spiritual practice. May we embody love. We all need water to survive, as we all need love to thrive. We share the flame. We choose love as the enduring force that holds us together. With open hearts and curious minds, may we receive the realities and blessings of change.
So Ebony will be available in room C to discuss her, answer questions and have conversation about her sermon. And I have a few more announcements. We will celebrate Ken's contribution as choir director with a short celebration service and a reception following the service on Sunday, April 30th at 12:30. You are invited to do a quick, and quick means 30 seconds, video to say farewell to Ken. You can use any device with a camera, such as your phone or a computer or tablet, to record your video. Information on how to submit your farewell video can be found in the newsletter. Please send in a video by Sunday, April 30th. The annual David Stevenson Memorial Coffee House is back in person. It will be on Friday, May 12th at 7 p.m. Enjoy an upbeat evening of music, poetry, dance, and entertainment performed by guest performers and members of Northwest. To attend, just be there. Bring a snack to share, and beverages will be provided. To bring your talent and perform, contact Jerry Price or Mark Denny. And then coffee hour, we're having coffee hour today after service in the multi-purpose room. Please come for conversations, coffee and tea, and light snacks.